Good afternoon. My name is Ray D'Agostine, and together with Christopher Bolton, we're the co-founders and inventors of the technology behind Tiny Bright Things. And we're really excited today to share with you our invention that can transform any standard light microscope into a nanoscale imaging system. We're kind of trying to give a standard microscope superpowers so that it can do things you never could do with a light microscope, but try to keep it as simple as adding on a pair of sunglasses. So I run a particle technology lab, and what I know using microscopes is the same thing I see in my colleagues in material science and life sciences and as well as in industry, is that they're critical, whether it be you want to image something, measure the size and shape of particles, or count something. We know that these are critical to our work to either do research or drive a product. But what we also know is as objects get more tiny and more transparent, uniformly, things become slow, expensive, and far more complicated because they require specialist tools. And what this does in life sciences is it really puts a handbrake on discovery. In places like industrial bio nanotech, where they're making new tiny materials all the time, they often outstrip the characterization capabilities of existing tools, and it slows down time to market. And then in large scale process manufacturing and agrochem minerals processing and pharma, the ability to do process interventions and deal with quality control can often become hampered, leading to process inefficiencies. To give you an example of that loss in pharma in 2004 is largely attributed to process inefficiencies and quality control problems. And then in talking to, say, former directors of pharmaceutical companies you would know, we found that they often say the lion's share of this problem is not knowing physical form. That's the size and the shape of the materials they're making, everywhere from process all the way to formulation and end use of the product. So we know this is a problem worth solving. So I'd like to introduce you to the Halo element. It's a microscope attachment that can fit on any simple standard microscope, combined with a camera and our proprietary software to make a product that can take a microscope and turn it into something called a nanoscope. And so this is an example of just a skin cell in a standard microscope image. But to move it to a nanoscope, to see it the way Halo does, we can illuminate that microscope, but we see the skin cell in a different light. In fact, we see everything in a different light because we're getting around a barrier in physics. Because not only can we see that skin cell, we can see things 1,000 times smaller to that, including that example of that little nanorod that's about as small as a virus. So we can see things that you could never use in a light microscope. And more to the point, we can do it as fast as you can take a picture. And you don't have to stain it, label it, fluoresce it, dry it out, or put it in a vacuum, because we've designed this system to work without complicated sample preparation in almost any condition you can think of. And so what that does is it immediately takes that handbrake off discovery in life sciences and can really transform the workflows in a lab. And it's an even bigger impact in particle processing, because now in manufacturing, for process innovation and quality control, to get those really good answers that would normally take hours to days, we can provide in seconds to minutes. We've gotten this far by first taking our discovery in a University of Melbourne lab funded off an ARC grant from a big lab bench system, then miniaturizing it to file a provisional patent in May 2019. We then spent quite a lot of time talking to customers and users to validate what we saw as our value proposition and better understand our market. Certainly, TRAM has been instrumental in helping us through this path. We've also managed to pick up a few innovation awards along the way as well. We filed a PCT in May 2020, and then to really move us forward, we've had a bit of success in attracting funding with an accelerating commercialization grant that started in May this year. To date, that's about just under $500,000 in non-dilutive funding to drive us forward. And this has had the desired effect. We've really jumped forward. We incorporated Tiny Bright Things in the middle of this year, and now we're moving from our MVP to a commercial product. And we're doing that consulting with users and customers through trials. We've got a great study planned with what I think is the best nanometrology group in Australia at NMI. We're doing industry trials with both a large pharma company and a startup company. And we've got a number of life science pilot trial studies set up where we're really allowing those researchers to measure things they couldn't. We're also looking to grow our team. We're looking for an application engineer in early next year, and then a commercial person to come along with us in our journey. And this is all tied up to aim for first sales by the middle of next year. We'll then push on to try to get a Halo element in as many labs as possible in the Australian market through 2021, with plans to expand in 2022 into overseas markets. Now, to accelerate that expansion, particularly through the Australian market, but certainly into the overseas one, we're talking to investors now with initial discussions with the aims of a formal fundraising at the start of next year to really drive us into overseas markets and help that exponential growth catalyze. So thank you for your time. My name's Ray D'Agostine, and we're Tiny Bright Things.